U.S. President Trump has touched down in Tokyo as part of his Asia tour. He'll meet with Japanese leaders and is expected to talk defense strategies and investment in the U.S. Trump was traveling from the ASEAN summit in Malaysia. This is Trump's fourth visit to Japan as U.S. president. After arriving in Tokyo Monday, he met with Emperor Naruhito at the Imperial Palace. They hadn't seen each other since Trump visited in 2019. During his three-day stay, the president will also hold talks with Prime Minister Takaichi. They will sit down together Tuesday. They are expected to discuss Japan's planned $550 billion investment in the United States, the result of back-and-forth trade negotiations. Trump and Takaichi will also likely talk about strengthening Japan's defense capabilities. His visit will wrap up Wednesday when Trump will travel to South Korea to meet with President Lee Jae-myung. The U.S. president is also expected to hold talks there with Chinese President Xi Jinping on Thursday.
For more details, let's talk with our senior international correspondent, Ishii Yusaku, who's covered President Trump since his first term. So Yusaku, Takaichi spoke with Trump by phone on Saturday,
right.
And she posted on X later on that they had a frank and good exchange. So what's at stake in the summit?
Well, the main focus is about reaffirming the Japan-US alliance. But however, personal diplomacy between the two leaders will also be emphasized. And Trump had a close bond with the late former Prime Minister Abe Shinzo. They played golf together and often spoke frequently and were on first name basis. So Dr. Ken Weinstein, the Japan chair at Hudson Institute, highlights the importance of personal relationships.
The key thing with President Trump is developing that strong relationship. The president likes to pick up the phone and call world leaders. He has great relations with Mark Rutte, the NATO Secretary General, with Friedrich Merz, the German Chancellor, with Giorgia Meloni, the Italian Prime Minister. Obviously, Shinzo Abe was the role model in all this. You know, they spoke dozens of times. They went golfing. Et cetera. And so I think their wives became close friends. I think it's very important for Takaichi to understand that she needs to develop the kind of bond that will lead down the road to the policy cooperation in crucial moments that will really be necessary in the next few years.
And now the question is whether Takaichi, who was politically aligned with Abe, can establish a similar connection with Trump. And it may seem a small issue, but I would like to pay attention to how Trump addresses her, whether he calls her Prime Minister Takaichi or simply Sanae, because this may indicate, kind of personal chemistry between them.
And as we say, this will be their first meeting. What will be the main topics of discussion?
And trade and security are the top priorities. And in terms of trade, Japanese investment is key. And Japan and the U.S. agreed in July on Japanese investments in the U.S. totaling $550 billion as part of the tariff deal. However, the specifics such as which sector to invest in remains unclear. And what Takaichi can bring to the table will be one of the key issues in the meeting. And energy might also be on the agenda. Japan's import of LNG, liquefied natural gas from Russia, could come up, with Washington pressing Tokyo to stop those imports in response to the war in Ukraine.
And Yusaku, what about security? Takaichi says that strengthening the Japan-US alliance is the most important issue in her administration's foreign and security policy.
And Trump has argued that the U.S. bears an unfairly heavy burden for global security and insists countries like, including allies, should take on more responsibility. And Takaichi, in her first policy address to Parliament last week, unveiled a plan to take steps to raise defense-related spendings to 2% of GDP within this fiscal year instead of the original goal of fiscal 2027. So how Trump evaluates this will have a critical impact on Japan. And another focus will be host nation support for the U.S. force stationed in Japan. Trump might make a new demand or comments about an increased Japanese contribution. And they will also likely discuss regional security issues in light of the coercion and threats posed by China and DPRK.
And the Japan-U.S. summit will come right before the U.S.-China meeting later this week.
Exactly. And Trump is set to meet Chinese President Xi Jinping later this week in South Korea. And Japan is carefully watching how the U.S.-China meeting evolves. And tomorrow's meeting will be an opportunity to show the world the strong bond of the Japan-U.S. relationship. And it may also influence broader U.S.-China dynamics in the Indo-Pacific.